In this video, we're going to try to intentionally break our app with illogical inputs, because no matter what you create, some people will either accidentally or intentionally try to break your app.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Let's try to think of things that people might type in that will cause our program to break or work in an unintended way while it's running. Right off the bat, I can imagine someone leaving an input blank. Or maybe they'll type in some letters that'll screw up our program when the computer tries to do math on that value. Or maybe they type in a number with 2 decimals, like 32.7.4, which will not be handled correctly, I don't think. Or maybe they'll enter 0 for the number of people in attendance, and then we'll get some weird response at the end. So what we first have to do is check that both user inputs are valid numbers. And since I don't know how to check that off the top of my head, I'm going to have to use Google to find some resources. And by this point, you've probably noticed that I keep using Google to figure out how to do certain things. And this is what the vast majority of programmers do every day, multiple times a day. It may seem like cheating, but I believe it's perfectly fine as long as you're modifying the code and trying to understand how it works as you're using it. If you're just copying and pasting code without any thought behind what you're doing, you're going to just hinder your growth as a programmer, and you may even encounter bugs in the future that you won't understand how to fix. So let's try searching for, JavaScript check input number only. Let's see if that works. And we get a few results, and I'm going to check out the first result, which is a Stack Overflow post. Stack Overflow is a website that allows anyone to post any coding question and receive answers to those questions from other people. The best questions explain what the coder is trying to accomplish, the code that doesn't seem to work, and any other useful information, like error information from the console. When I find a post that may help, I like to read the question and make sure it's what I'm looking for. Then I like to look for the response with a green check mark, indicating that it's the most helpful answer. So in this post, it looks like this person was trying to create an alert to pop up only if the user inputted a letter. So it kind of seems like the person that asked this question was looking for something similar to us. In the first answer with a check mark, we can see that we can use the isNaN or isNotANumber function to determine if a value does not convert to a number. So in the code that they included, it looks like they used an if statement and then isNotANumber with an input of x, which was set on the line before, so we can check to see if x is not a number, and if that happens to be true, then the block of code inside of the curly braces will get run. I also like to read some of the comments to see if anyone posted something of interest, and it looks like we may have a potential issue if someone types in a letter after a number, like 3a. So let's go back to our code and see if we can use isNotANumber ourselves. So what I want to do is I want to use an if statement. And the way that an if statement works is that it checks to see if the condition, or what I put inside the parentheses, is true or false. And if whatever I put inside the parentheses equates to true, then it's going to run any code inside of the curly braces. So let me use isNotANumber as my condition, and isNotANumber takes in its own input. And in the example that someone wrote, they had x, but since we don't declare or set x at any point before this, we're going to use total bill num as the input. So we're going to check to see if total bill num is not a number. And if it's not a number, we want to alert the user, you have not entered a number. So let's run it and try it out, see if it works. Well, how much was the total bill? Let's type in ASDF and see if it is able to catch this. Awesome, it says you have not entered a number. So that's exactly what I expected. And you notice that it keeps going on. It says how many people were in attendance because we haven't figured out a way to stop the program from running at that point. So we're still going to get an error if we continue, but we'll fix that later. Let me rerun it again and let me type in 3a because someone said that was a case where it's not going to catch it. So if I hit OK, it says how many people were in attendance, so it's not alerting that we haven't entered a number. And we should really catch 3a because there's a letter in the input. So we'll see if we can figure that out in a little bit. isNotANumber is a built-in JavaScript function or block of code whose underlying code is abstracted away or hidden from us. So if you're coming from the Scratch or Snap world, think of isNotANumber as a block that's built into JavaScript that you don't have to create yourself. You just have to know in which situations to use it. Actually, the is blank a number block in Snap works in a very similar manner. To learn more about is not a number, we have to do a bit more digging. So let's Google it and see if we can figure out how it works in greater detail. So I'm going to go back to Google and I'm going to search for JavaScript isNaN. The first result is the W3 Schools page, which is usually pretty good for beginners. They show us a bunch of examples, and in the definition and usage section, we can read exactly how it works. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the second Google result, which is this MDN one. And the reason I like to read the Mozilla developer site is because it goes into more detail about is not a number, the kind of detail that I like to read when I'm learning new things. So over here, I'm seeing that the is not a number function determines whether a value is not a number or not. And then it says, note coercion inside the function has interesting rules. So this is really interesting because it means that is not a number is coercing its input to a number, or it's trying to at least first. So automatically, I'm thinking we should go back to our code and we should use it after we get the input from the user. So let me actually show you what I mean. So I don't really want to use is not a number on total bill num because it's already been coerced to a float or a decimal number. I actually want to run it on total bill because is not a number is automatically going to coerce total bill to a number and maybe catch the error first. The way we have it now, it's kind of redundant. So let's move this block of code up, and instead of checking if total bill num is not a number, we'll check to see if total bill is a number. And what we'll do in the next video is make sure that we only continue when we actually have a number. So let's retest it now with a string. So let me type in ASDF to make sure it still works correctly. And it says you've not entered a number. It still continues on, but we'll fix that next video, like I said. So let me try rerunning it with, let's say, 3A. And now it says you have not entered a number. So that's actually really interesting to me. I'm actually really surprised that it works. Maybe is not a number is now correctly detecting that having any text in the input makes it not a number, whereas before we were coercing the value to a number twice and somehow it was getting through. So I want to do the same thing for number of people. I want to check to make sure that the number of people that someone entered, if it's not a number, so let me just pass in number of people. If it's not a number, then we're going to alert the user, you haven't entered a number. Now notice that I'm getting an error here, or the text has a different color, and that's because I did single quotes for this string, and what's happening is that because I have a single quote inside of my string, JavaScript doesn't realize that this isn't the end of it. So what I can do to kind of cancel that out is put in a backward slash or a backslash. And that way it'll ignore this quote and it will correctly write out my sentence in the alert box. So let me just test this out. I'm going to first write in a string of text for the total bill, which should give me an alert. Perfect. And then for how many people in attendance, I'm going to actually try 3A and see if it gets through again or if it detects that it's not a number. It detected that it's not a number, so it's working correctly. In the next video, we'll figure out how to stop our app when the user enters a non-numeric input for either input, or if they type in 0, which is going to mess up our math.